we always say it's kind of the developer's sidekick. So on their second monitor, they can have Prefix open. So as they're writing and testing code, they can glance over and they can see all the web requests in real time while they happen. And at any time, they can click on those and view the details.
Hi everybody and welcome back to another episode of the Manhattans Project. I'm Michael Gibson, Marketing Manager here at 10th Magnitude. I'm joined by two very special guests today from Stackify. I'm joined by Jason Taylor, CTO over at Stackify, and Matt Watson, CEO there. Thank you guys very much for coming on and being willing to take time to set aside so much of your day to come in from Kansas City to be on the show. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
Well, I'll go a long way for a good Manhattan.
Absolutely. So thank you very much for coming. And cheers to both of you. That is always my favorite part of these videos. It really is. So Stackify, give me just a real quick overview. What is it you guys do? I mean, you guys have been on my roadmap because I'm a bit of a data nerd. And just sort of high level, before I started talking to you guys about coming on the show, I was just like, oh, Stackify, they're data visualization. What are you actually?
So what Stackify does is we provide a set of tools, are cloud-based and some developer workstation-based, to let developers, .NET and Java developers, really look at overall application performance and get that fine-grained, method-level, code-level view of how their code's performing in production and pre-production environments.
So you're here today to talk a little bit about Prefix. Right. Which is a specific tool you've put out for developers, right?
Yeah, it's a free tool that we built.
Okay. So what is it a free version of, and what does it do?
Absolutely. So our normal paid offerings are for monitoring the performance of servers. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter if it's cloud, virtual, Azure, app service, all those things. We work with all of them. But what we did is we took the same code profiling technology under the hood and made a developer version so they can run on their workstations. Now there's other profilers that exist and that developers use. What's unique about Prefix is it's very lightweight and they can run it all the time. So we always say it's kind of the developer's sidekick. So on their second monitor, they can have Prefix open. So as they're writing and testing code, they can glance over and they can see all the web requests in real time while they happen. And at any time, they can click on those and view the details, like what log statements there were, the SQL queries, web service calls, cache calls, queue calls, all these different things. Mm-hmm. So they can hopefully find and fix performance problems. That's why we call it Prefix, before they get to production. Okay. And it's a free tool, so we really hope people enjoy it, and that's why we're glad to be here talking about it.
Awesome.
Trying to spread the word.
You guys gave me a quick demo a little bit earlier. And no worries at home or at the office. We're gonna put up a couple snippets from a Prefix demo. I really liked it. Yeah. I feel like it really goes an extra mile to providing some visibility to errors and performance and stuff like that. I was telling you guys we have an issue on our website where occasionally like a page will just all of a sudden for no reason take forever to load. And the deepest we can get in Google Analytics is, it just took a while, and we have to really dig in and really find out what happened. Yep. So I liked it from that standpoint, where it tells you immediately this slowed down because A, B, and C, and this is how you fix it. How does that plug into specifically with what we do? So we're Azure based. We have our friends over at Chef, our friends over at Mesosphere and Rackspace. Where do you guys fit into that ecosystem? So for one of our clients, they're running Azure, they're running a revenue generating application. Everything's going perfectly fine, and then what happens?
Prefix does a couple kind of interesting things there. When you look at our full, SaaS-based platform for monitoring your servers, that's a really great spot for us as people who are in the cloud, because DevOps in the cloud is different from doing DevOps in traditional ways, right? You've got different app containers and different services and sandboxed environments.
And they scale up and scale down.
And they scale up, scale down, and can be different from day to day or region to region. So Stackify helps developers really, get a view of what's happening in their cloud environments, and how that really ties to Prefix is that we've done a couple things inside Prefix. So if you are looking at a page local on your development machine and seeing what the performance is, you can quickly click through and compare that in our server-based product to see how you run local versus in your other environments, QA and production and pre-production.
Yeah.
And ultimately, by giving the same sort of insights, we take the concept of application performance management and DevOps and take down the chain and make a first-class citizen as developers are writing code. So rather than worrying about something once it's gone to production, giving them that insight and view early on to let them know this is going to be a problem. And just like DevOps is about a continuous cycle of releasing and automating and deploying your code, Prefix kind of brings this continuous cycle of improving your code and catching bugs before they go out by using some of the same tools and mechanisms.
Yeah, I think our products are kind of the other side of DevOps. I mean, you have the chef side and other tools to help with deployments and automation and all that, and then you got the monitoring and debugging side, and we kind of sit on that side of it. So, as you described, I'm having a problem in production. Why am I having a problem? What's causing it? And quickly getting to the root cause. And that's really what our tools are all about, is getting to that root cause and making sure your customers are happy and that you're in business and life is good.
Okay.
You can sleep at night knowing that Stackify is keeping an eye on everything.
Awesome. So talking about simple usage, I'm sure there's undoubtedly already a couple developers and a couple infrastructure engineers that have gone to check out prefix.io or Googling Stackify Prefix. If you haven't already, click this button. So they go to Prefix, they download an installer. How long is it going to be until they have something up and running? Like, how long is it going to be until they're monitoring locally?
Yeah, so as you described, it's a simple Windows installer that they just install in their local dev box. It just takes literally like a minute or two to install. Then basically they just restart their web app, their web server, which Prefix potentially will do that for them, and they're off and running. That's it. There's no code changes required, no config changes required. Because we work with the .NET profiler, so much of what we do just works internally at a low level from the profiler. So it makes it really easy to deploy and use. And we support IIS Express, and then we have some support as well for Kestrel, which is for ASP.NET Core. And we continue to enhance ASP.NET Core as it gets closer to V1 release. And then we're going to release some support as well for self-hosted web apps like Web API and WCF and stuff too.
Okay. And that's not just Azure. That's a whole slew of providers, as well as local development on-prem stuff too.
Yeah, and so for Prefix, it's all about the development machine. But then when you get to our other server-based products, we don't care if it's on Azure or AWS or a physical server in a closet in your office. It doesn't matter.
And in both cases, it's the same install process. It's click next a couple times, click finish, and then magic happens. And I think it's a testament to that every day we have on Twitter, people reaching out to us saying, hey, I just installed Prefix on my development machine, and it surfaced this unhandled exception that was, causing me a problem that I didn't even know.
And I always say, that's awesome, but I'm sorry. It's like, I'm glad to hear that it's working and you found problems, but I'm sorry you found the problems.
We love your horrible code.
Part of the magic of it is we automatically instrument and support all the common libraries. So not only the Microsoft common libraries, but also third-party ones. So we support all the common UI frameworks from .NET and SQL Server and Azure Service Bus and all the great Azure tools. But we also support things like MongoDB and Elasticsearch and RavenDB and MSMQ and In-Service Bus, and the list goes on and on and on, and we continue to enhance that.
And all of the Azure PaaS offerings,
all the
table storage, Service Bus.
And all the AWS stuff. And so to what Jason described, you can log into our system, and if you're having a problem with performance, a lot of times our system will just really show you. It's like, whoop, this is slower, and that was Redis, or that was MongoDB, or whatever it was. And the cloud is great, but sometimes the cloud has hiccups, and that's part of it. And we can help at least highlight that, and hopefully it's not an issue with your code. And I guess from this point of view, hopefully it was an issue with the cloud, and you don't have to do anything about it. It's just except call your cloud provider and complain, I guess. But
that goes a long way sometimes.
Yeah, and but the whole point is we can give visibility to it and kind of help understand, okay, was it Azure Table Storage, or was it Service Bus, or was it Redis, or was it my code? There's lots of other profilers that exist. Like Visual Studio has one, there's Ant and Just Trace, and there's other ones that exist. But they're really low level. They track like every line of code and every method that happens. Well, in a single request to your web server, there's literally like tens of thousands of methods that get called. And so if you track every one of those, of course, it brings your computer to a grinding halt. And that's why Prefix is different, is we only track certain methods that we know impact performance or important for understanding behavior and debugging and stuff. And so it adds little overhead. It's the same technology we use in servers that have, potentially hundreds of requests per second. And we're able to work just fine with those as well, because what we've done is highly optimized for performance. And so that's what's great about Prefix, is it's always running. Where those other tools that do deep level profiling, people don't use all the time. Now, they are awesome tools if you're really trying to tune CPU or memory or whatever. But generally when you're using those things, you're kind of having a bad day, right? They're like, man, I got a serious problem and I got to get to it really into the weeds to find some CPU problem or memory leak or whatever.
Yeah.
Where Prefix is just this awesome log viewer and debugging tool that can just save you time every day. It's something you can use every day.
I think Scott Hansman of Microsoft put it best in the ASP.NET community stand-up a couple weeks ago. He said it's like Glimpse meets Elma meets something else, all these tools combined, just rolled into one that works right away.
Awesome. Yeah, I imagine the feedback, from the community utilizing those analytics structures, and even from the Microsoft teams, I would imagine that would be fairly positive, because it's a level of analytics reporting that isn't available already. And so to be able to have that and just almost a plug and play, just quick install, and see it is fantastic. So when you do, so you've been talking about Prefix, with the larger scale, the server side version of this you have, is it any more complicated to set up? And,
No.
Does it play nicely with, say, automated infrastructure or containers? Like, can you replicate it infinitely?
Yeah, it can be easily scripted when a server's deployed. So if you're deploying a server with Chef or Azure Cloud Services or App Services, ARM templates with Azure, all these different scenarios. When we support AWS, Elastic Beanstalk, all that stuff, it's easy to script it and just have it auto-install it.
4 lines of PowerShell gets it done.
And we have all that in our docs. And so that works great for people that are scaling up and scaling down, or people that, like, every time they deploy, they delete everything and then redeploy the whole infrastructure. Any of those kinds of scenarios, our system works great with.
Is there anything that you weren't anticipating putting in that now it's in there, you're going, wow, this is really cool? Like, how did we not have this on our roadmap from day one?
So, go ahead.
I'd say Prefix itself.
Yeah.
From day one, we were about putting Stackify on our users' servers and giving them all this great insight into environments that were normally difficult to get that level of data out of, or at least in one place, and constantly streaming in. And I think we overlooked a little bit how much developers would love getting that locally. And it's apparent to us now some of the reasons why. One of the things that we commonly see is what we would refer to kind of a leaky database situation. If you're writing code, and especially if you're using certain ORM layers, developers don't realize that at runtime, this query we wrote, this link statement, is going to turn into really nasty SQL that will end up executing hundreds of times per page request. And seeing that locally as you're developing and debugging, this is the only way you would get to see that. And if that goes to production, that's going to cause major performance issues once you get there. So there's always been static code analysis tools, and this is really more runtime analysis that really bridges that divide from writing code to putting it out and seeing how it performs. That we just never realized until we started putting it out there and collecting feedback that this was something that people really want.
Yeah, that was probably the best moment for us, is we thought we built something cool, and to get the feedback we get, and the hundreds of people that are installing it all every day, every week, that just constant feedback that people really like the tool. So
Yeah, and I think that loops back. Last episode we had David Powell from TechLinks talking about how this sort of eureka / oh duh moment where the realization hit where the person who wins when companies talk to each other about what works and what doesn't are the customers, are the users, because when we talk to you about application insights and monitoring and stuff like that, we're looking at it from this is the utility that's already built into Azure, that works. Well, yeah, it works, but for some clients, for some customers, it might not work enough. It might not give them that added transparency, and so I think it really comes back to, there's two other sides of DevOps. There's the implementer side, and then there's the adopter side, and I feel like this really helps cross people across that bridge where they go, yeah, this is working, but how can it work better? And I really think that's kind of the whole crux behind that movement. Aside from the community development, aside from the communication, it's all about, yeah, this works, but it can work better, it can work more efficiently, it can work more on a more united front from within and without an organization. And I think that really works.
I mean, it's a little bit of a cliched analogy. You hear these things a lot, but think about it like moving into a new house. You can call a moving company. They're going to come pick your stuff up, package it, take it to the house, unpack it all, get you settled, and go, there you go, good luck. But then you spring a leak in your kitchen sink. Or do you call the mover about that? No, you call a plumber who's got the right tools to address that problem.
Nice. And it's just generally available. It's available at prefix.io or the Azure Marketplace. So, right?
Stackify's server-based products are in the Azure Marketplace.
Oh, okay.
Prefix is not. Prefix is at prefix.io. We should mention, though, that there is a free version of Stackify APM available in the Azure Marketplace.
Okay.
Yes.
That's what I was seeing
Yep.
then. Okay.
It's free for, I think, a couple servers.
I think 3 servers,
Yeah, and so they can take advantage of that for free.
So people can try out both flavors of Stackify for free to give it a try. What sort of when you see people come in and download either Stackify, the demo, if you will, or and Prefix, what sort of adoption are you seeing from within organizations?
Well, one of the coolest things that we see is, Prefix is free, and the only thing we ask for from people is to give us their email address so we can just keep them up to date on Prefix updates and cool news and product stuff and videos like this that we're doing.
Sure.
So it's really cool for us to see, one person from a company download it, and then the next day, like a couple more, and the next day a couple more of. You can see a couple people really liked it, and they're telling other people on their team, and so that always is awesome to see that spreading within a company that they're seeing value in it.
And then
It's
quite
one of my
often,
favorite
then we
things.
see later on down the road, we'll see a full Stackify APM account pop up and see them start to add servers because they get this taste of Prefix. They go, wow, I wish if that's the first time they've heard of Stackify is by Prefix. They go, wow, I wish I had this on my servers too.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a solution for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's the same technology, and that's why we built Prefix, was to show off what we can do, and we thought it'd be really useful for developers, and so we definitely want them to see it and say, hey, we wish that we could do this on our servers, and in the future we'll have a paid version of Prefix. We're working on some really killer features of that for the paid version, but we plan to keep the free version as well. So I'm writing testing code, I'm testing something. I'm using Prefix to see my logging statements and my SQL statements and making sure it works and make sure it looks the way I think it's going to look, and just kind of validation as I'm working, okay? Then the other thing that we see is people using it for performance review. So you, for example, could download his code, his app, or whatever, and just step through it and click through all out the app, and then you can look at Prefix and look for things that look odd. And then you might go back to him and say, hey, I was reviewing the performance of our app, we should look at these 3 things. And our APM stuff that's on the servers is more in that category, right? It's hey, we're monitoring performance, we're reviewing performance, and maybe performance is good, but it could be tweaked, or maybe you have a big outage and you're trying to figure out why. I mean, there's a lot of use cases there. It could be useful in QA, pre-production, prod, for a lot of different reasons, and there's a lot of different people that use it for different use cases. But it's more of that review, part of it.
Right, and we've even had of some cases of people who are using it for instrumentation of code that they don't necessarily own source to, or the ability to make changes to really understand what's happening, to be able to go back to the developer or support team for whoever's provided that off-the-shelf software and say, this is the performance that we're seeing, what can we do here to get around this?
So that's one of the cool things you can do is it works on any .NET application. So it could be a third-party application. You can install Prefix or APM in them, and it'll all of a sudden show you, like, hey, this thing that we know nothing about is making these web service calls and making these SQL database calls, and maybe that can help them to go back to the third-party product and say, hey, this is why your product is slow on my network, on my stuff, and you guys need to fix this, whoever the third party is. And we've had people do that.
Are there any other utilities that you guys just like, that you found complements Prefix really nicely? Like, is there anything that you found that helps with deployment or anything like that you just think meshes really well? Like, if you're using Prefix, you should also use.
I think there's probably a future. Where we've got Prefix integrated with some other products, and again, that's where we kind of want to talk to some of our clients and see what's great. I think there's a lot of opportunity to take what Prefix can produce and help less seasoned developers write better code.
Or help me write any.
Or help you write any.
Sure.
Yeah,
and we'll have to see what that future brings.
Another good tool and common tool developers use is Fiddler, which lets you see all the web traffic happening from your machine. But it doesn't show you what's happening in the server the way that Prefix does, right? And so Prefix is sort of like Fiddler, but it's the server-side view of it. And also like Google Chrome's, dev tools. You can see all the client-side stuff and all the network traffic and all that. Prefix is just kind of the other side of it. But I could see one day, for Google Chrome and Fiddler and stuff, building plugins where it's like, okay, I can see the client-side part of this request, and then I can click here and see the Prefix side of it, and things like that, where we can continue to make people's lives easier, whatever tools we're using to get to the data. Be cool.
All right, so thanks everybody for joining us for another episode of the Manhattans Project. It's been a pleasure talking to Jason and Matt. So again, if you're interested in trying out what they have, they're both from Stackify. We've been talking about their free developer utility. I think that's the way I call it. Prefix. You can find it at prefix.io. I'm going to include a link in the video description below, as well as a couple of methods of contact: email, Twitter handles, as per usual. And if you also have something like this that you want to talk to us about, I mean, this is probably the first truly organic guest folks we've had on here, where they're just like, hey, we like this thing that you're doing, and we have this thing we want to talk about, and so here they are. What do you have? What are you working on? What are you putting together that is going to be plugged into on-prem and cloud native and enterprise and small business levels? Like, what do you have that you want to talk to us? Yeah, of things. Ops,
bots. It's all about bots.
Drones, something.
Yeah.
What are you building? We want to know, and we'd love to have you here on the show. So get in contact with me. Twitter handle at 10th Magnitude, or you can reach out to me directly. info@10thmagnitude.com. And if you want to talk to them some more, if you want to see them back on the show, let me know, and I'll drag them back here from Kansas City.
Hit us up on Twitter at Stackify. Every week, our Twitter handles being covered by one of our developers. So
awesome.
You're going to get to talk to one of our nerds, and they love having nerdy conversations.
Great. Well, thank you guys for coming out. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope you guys travel home
Cheers.
safe. I hope you enjoyed Chicago, and see you next time. Cheers.